Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jacob Bennett with Bulldog Analytics, and today I want to walk through how we can create a custom calendar or date table in Power BI. Now, there's two ways we can do this. We can use Power Query and create something custom using the M language, backing it, or we can do something in the front end of Power BI desktop using a DAX calculated table. Either way, I don't really think it matters performance-wise, and both tables get refreshed whenever your service report is configured to refresh, and then it's stored in memory from there on out. So it's really up to preference at this point, and I use both. So let's go ahead and just walk through both. And again, I'm going to try to keep this high level. I'm going to provide the code both for the Power Query M language table as well as the DAX calculated table in the description. Feel free to copy and use those in your own reports to get started. And let's go ahead and jump over to my screen. All right, guys, as you can see, I've already got Power Query opened up, and to start creating a custom calendar table, we're going to go ahead and click New Source and go to Blank Query. Now, just as this is opening, remember there's going to be a million ways to do this. This is just my process, so feel free to, edit it, change it as you so please, but this is just going to be how I do things. So right off the bat, you need to set a start date, and then after this, we're going to start an end date. What I like to do typically is set the start date to January 1st, 2021. We're sitting here in the middle of 2024. That gives us sufficient amount of trend data, and it just kind of makes sense to me. Now, if you want to be more dynamic, you could always say, all right, I want to have 3 years of trend data on hand or 4 years of trend data on hand, so I want my calendar to reflect that. So you could do some sort of function in the M code to say, I want the beginning of the year date for whatever the year today is -3 or -4, and then you can set it that way in a more dynamic manner. Another approach, and this goes for the end date too, is maybe you want to set it based on what dates are represented in the fact tables. So you want to set it to the min of the date column in the fact table and the max of the date table in the fact table, and those be your start and end dates. We're not going to do that today, but that is totally an option that you can use. I'm just going to set mine today to January 1st of 2021. So simply, I'm going to type in 1-1-2021 and click enter. All right, so now you can see we've got this value. I'm going to come up to the top left. I'm going to click to table and convert this to a table. Now we're going to drop this down and convert the format to date. I'm going to go ahead and retitle this start date. Now I'm going to come up to the top, click add column, do custom column. Here I'm going to title this end date, and then we could set this to something set in stone like December 31st, 2024, but whenever an end date comes about, I like to create this more dynamically. So you could do like a end of the current year type approach. So how would we do that? Let's see, there's this date, end of year, and then we want to reference the current date. So that's going to be this date time local now function. And if I click OK, oh, I gotta put in some open and close parentheses after the local now. If I click OK, you'll see it actually sets it to January 1st of 2025. So if I come and switch that format to date, you'll see that it actually sets it to the December 31st, 2024. Now this is one approach, and this is very nice, but based on how you use some different time intelligence functions potentially in DAX, I typically like to set this to whatever today's date is, or today -1, because honestly with a lot of the stuff I'm working with, I don't care about future stuff. I just want to know what's been recorded through today. So I'm going to go back into our custom column here, and I'm going to just delete out the date end of year piece and leave it as date time local now. Click OK, and we're going to set that as a date format. All right, so next we need to do a custom column, and we're going to call this count. It's going to go away, so it doesn't really matter what we call this, but I'm going to do end date minus start date. And essentially what this does is it counts up the number of days between the two set parameters there, start and end date. I'm going to change the format to a whole number. All right, now I'm going to click custom column again. It doesn't really matter what we title this, but we're going to use the function list dates. Open parentheses, it wants the start date, so we reference the start date column. And then it wants the count of days, so we're going to reference this count column. And then you have to input this duration function, and basically I'm going to put 1, 0, 0, 0. Essentially what I'm saying here is I want this to count up based on the day. This I think would be hours, minutes, seconds. So if you wanted a calendar or date table that included that level of granularity, and then you're able to make a relationship to your fact table. In this instance, I just care about it by day. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. As you'll see, it creates a list. So I'm going to click on that button and it creates my dates. And I have to convert this again to table. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Let's go ahead and change that to date. And then if I sort it in descending order, you'll see it actually goes through 714. Well, I put that local time, which is 715, or that local now function. So I'm going to come back into my advanced editor. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to change this to count +1 on that list date step. Click done. And now you'll see that it goes through 715. I'm going to go ahead and change this to date. And now we've got all the dates for the calendar that we need. So from here, I can go ahead and just add some basic steps by going over to the add column section. Here, as you can see, we've got this automated date option drop down, so I can add year. I can select here and add name of month. I can add month, which is the numeric value. Come over here, I can add start of month or end of month. Either one, they're great for sorting, like a year month column. Let's see what else we've got in here that I might want to add. We've got quarter. So something like that might be beneficial. One other thing I really like to use is a year month column. So say 2024-07. So the way that I like to do that is I go into custom column. I'm going to call this year month. All right, so we'll start this off by saying year. This is going to look weird at first, but I'm going to space it out so that it makes sense. Do an ampersand, do my dash for the year dash month, and then we're going to do another ampersand, and then an open parentheses, and say if month is greater than or equal to 10, then no leading 0, else leading 0. So that'll capture a leading 0 for any values 1 through 9. And then we'll do and then we'll do our month calculation. Click OK. Looks like we've got an error. Let's go ahead and see what that is. We cannot apply operator to type number and text. So what we're going to have to do is go back into our code, and since we've got this year and month that are numbers, we're going to have to do a number to text function. Number to text. Okay. All right, now it looks like we're working. Let's switch that to a text. Drop down to make sure it looks good, and everything looks good. So this is kind of the basics. Let's see, if I do click on the date, drop down, you've also got stuff for weeks. So maybe you want to see week of year. Maybe we want to click on that. And for day, we can do name of day. There's really a lot of options built into Power Query that make this process very simple. But as you can see, I've got a date table that works well for me. I've got this advanced editor M code that I can copy and paste in the description. Let's go ahead and jump out of Power Query. I'll click close and apply, and we can walk through the DAX calculated table approach. All right, so we can see our query 1, which we'll rename that Power Query date. Probably a better name, but that works. And you can see it's got everything we need right here in the table view. Now let's click up and look at ordered date. So I already wrote the code for this DAX calculated table. This is my approach. Like I said, it's got some of the same columns, some that are slightly different, but it generally gets at the same concept. So what's going on here? We'll just break down what I've already written. As you can see, this is based on order date. That's just what the fact table has. But I actually have two variables and then return one of the variables. So my first variable is actually using this calendar function. It's a DAX function where you, again, define a start date and an end date. And so if I were to actually come up here and instead of returning my second variable, I would just return this first calendar variable. Well, it's actually called dates variable, but if I click return on that, it'll be a single column. Ignore that, it's just a calculated column and it doesn't have anything to reference anymore. But if I just look at the dates column and I do, sort descending, you'll see that it goes through today. And in this instance, I've got it set to the minimum order date of the fact table through today. So again, I mentioned in the Power Query discussion, that's one approach. We can also come in here, and similar to how we did in Power Query, I can set this just equal to January 1st, 21, and then click OK. Now when I do an ascending order, you'll see that it starts on January 1st, 2021. So now let's focus on what I'm doing in this calendar variable code here with adding columns. So I want to go ahead and return that again. Now, as you can see, I'm using this add columns function. This basically allows you to add calculated columns to a given table or table expression. And this calendar function up here in the dates variable is actually treated as a table expression. So we're able to reference that and then basically add our columns to that. So if you go one by one, so I've got my date variable, and this is going to be a little out of order, but that's going to be default, and that's what provides us with this date column. And if you jump down to the format of everything else, you'll see that I have a quoted textual column header or title of the column, followed by a function that defines how that column outputs. So you'll see here that I wanted to define a year column, so I used the year function and reference the date, same as the month, except I wanted it to output as the 3-character month name, so that's what you're seeing right here. So if I drop that down, you'll see the 3-character month names. Again, this isn't exactly in alignment with what we created in Power Query, but that's okay. Then I've got month number, which is just that month function. Back to year month, I did a couple weird things here. I don't know why I did this, but this first year month is year and the dash, and then the format that matches what we created up here with that 3-character month name. So that's what we see right here. That could be useful in reporting. Then we've got year month 2, so that's going to be more in alignment. Well, that's actually something different here too. I'm being crazy. Year month 3 is going to be in alignment with what we created in Power Query. And I created that using the year function with the date, the ampersand dash, and then I formatted the month with the 2 characters there. And so that outputs this, and it confirms that we always have those leading zeros because in the format function, I defined it with the 2 characters there. Then again, I put a start of month function in here, a quarter. I did a year quarter, which that could be useful for like a bar chart or a line chart or something to show trending. I've got the day of week here. It's just an abbreviated version of the day of week, and I've also got the weekday number. There's other functions in here that you can add, but I think this is a good start, and I'll also copy this into the show notes. All right, once you get all this created, if I click over to the modeling, you'll see I just simply stripped this down in a layout to the fact table and the 2 date tables, but they're gonna mirror each other exactly in terms of how they impact the fact table. So I've got the relationship established from order date to date. From order date to date, they're going to be treated the same. And again, performance-wise, there's really no difference. So here's 2 ways to create a custom calendar table in Power BI. And I hope that this has been a beneficial video, and I will see you in the next one.